All right, we will call the September 7th, 2023 Oakdale Planning Commission meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Seeing as our chair and vice chair, I guess, are absent this evening, I'm going to nominate myself to be the chair pro tem for the meeting tonight. I like how I did that. But we do need to take a vote on that.
I'll make that vote that you are the chair.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We will move on then. If Luke, you can call the roll, please.
Yes. Pearson is absent. Willenbring, also absent. Campbell.
Present.
Stolarski.
Present.
Macaulay.
Here.
Diota.
Here.
Hagan.
Here.
Thank you very much. Move on to approval of the minutes from August 3rd. Anyone have any changes to the minutes or any comments? If not, we'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to Planning Commission old business, there is none. So we will go to new business, which is a public hearing for Jamie Emerfoll, a conditional use permit for a home occupation dog grooming at 6700 4th Street North. Luke, if you can give us the presentation, please.
Thank you. Yes, as you just mentioned, Mr. Acting Chair, that this conditional use permit is located at 6700 4th Street, and it is for a home occupation pet grooming facility known as What the Fluff LLC. The zoning for that site is R1, low-density residential, where home occupations are allowed via conditional use permit. So just some details on this request. It is an existing home business. So the applicant is working with the city to bring the use into compliance. The request, it originates from a complaint about the use being operated without a permit. So again, we're simply working to bring the use into compliance with zoning standards. The applicant is going to utilize an existing grooming facility which is located within their detached garage on their property. Business hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays, so no operations on Sundays. The applicant anticipates that a total of 6 to 8 pet appointments per day would occur, resulting in 3 to 8 additional vehicle trips per day. So additionally, the applicant intends to work exclusively one-on-one with animals, eliminating the need for a kennel, and there will be no overnight boarding of animals. So here we can see the applicant's site plan. It might be a little bit difficult to see there on the screen, but I'll try to point things out with my cursor. So here is the home, and here's 4th Street. The green rectangle is the applicant's driveway, and then the garage is located towards the rear of the property, and the applicant will utilize just a portion of that garage for the dog or animal grooming operations. So currently there is no commercial sewer line connection to this property. To address this item, the city's building official has suggested that a condition of approval be placed on this permit so that the facility complies with state plumbing code and that a new sewer line be established at least 60 inches below grade for protection from freezing. And parking is not expected to be an issue here given the length of the driveway. Again, it can accommodate at least 8 cars in that driveway. So this photo shows the existing entrance to the home business, which again is located within the applicant's detached garage. And just a reminder to the commission and to the public that CUPs are subject to certain review criteria found in the city's ordinance. So here's just a high-level summary of the review criteria that we must use when we evaluate these types of requests. Compliance with the comprehensive plan, compatibility of the use with the zoning district, no nuisance effects generated, no traffic congestion or parking issues created. The use must be adequately served by public services, no excessive costs incurred for public services and infrastructure, minimal impacts to environmental and natural features. And then in addition to those criteria, we also have specific review criteria for home occupations. And those, just to summarize, are the following. So home occupations cannot have more than one external non-family employee. They must occur within a principal or accessory structure. And in this case, the accessory structure is the garage. No noticeable noise, vibration, smoke, dust, electrical disturbance, odors, heat, or glare can be generated from the use. Hours and intensity of operation must be limited. And finally, on-site advertising can be limited as well. So staff finds that the CUP review criteria have been satisfied as detailed in the staff report on file, provided that certain conditions can be met. And staff recommends approval of this request subject to the following 3 conditions. So the first one is that hours of operation for the use shall be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays. Number 2 is the applicant shall ensure that the pet grooming facility complies with state plumbing code. And number 3, the applicant shall verify that any sewer line connections serving the use are at least 60 inches below grade and sufficiently insulated to protect from freezing. So just a reminder, this is a public hearing. The applicant is here in attendance if you have any questions of them, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Are there any questions for staff?
Yes.
I just want to thank the applicant for coming forward and sort of asking for the city to work with them to allow this to happen. But the question I have for home occupation, some of the criteria you sort of spelled out is non-family employee. What does non-family mean? Is a definition what non-family means?
So, I mean, no relation to the individual, and you know, if they're living off-site, that's a clear indication as well. So, yep, if it's fully within the family, and I don't know that I want to try to define, you know, how what a family member is, but you know, if there's clearly no relation, and again, they're not a resident of the site, then that's clearly, that counts towards your one external employee.
As a follow-up, though, non-employee is a blood connection?
So,
For example,
What are you getting at? Like, where's the concern?
what I'm getting at is, I used to work for, while I worked at City of St. Paul. When I started City of St. Paul, they had a definition what family means. So linear relationship, mom, dad, or grandpa, grandma, son, all that. It's a linear relationship. It's a defined. So what non-family means to me is very vague. Can that be defined? Is it defined in the Oakdale zoning code? Because what I'm trying to get to the point where to make it sort of clearly easier for staff to enforce this.
sure.
If it's a non-family, whatever that means, may be complicated for enforcement purposes.
Sure.
And when I started working for City of St. Paul, they had a definition of household, no family. It's the linear ties, right? For me, being African from Africa, I come here, family is huge. You got brothers, sisters, nephews, and all that. So, and I had a tough time sort of enforcing that. And I pushed the City of St. Paul to change the definition of family. It changed, now it's called household, which is a little bit broader. So I'm hoping the definition of what non-family means is sort of clear, so that your staff don't have to sort of go into the weeds to say what non-family means versus family. That's what I'm getting at.
I guess, yeah, one thing I would add to that, though, is the way that this is drafted is the home occupation will be carried on by a member of the family residing in the dwelling unit, which, and then provided that the permit may allow not more than one employee who is not part of the family. So that, to me, implies that the family members have to reside in the dwelling unit to be employed. So I couldn't go hire my sister who lives in a different home, even though she's part of that linear family of mine. She doesn't live in this unit, so she couldn't work here.
Can you, okay, to follow up, can your buddy, who is, was raised by your family, maybe the parents passed away, right? And he was raised by your parents, or you, he's a family member by heart, right?
If he lives in that household, I would say he's a family member.
Okay.
He could work there.
Fair enough, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Just, no, I'm gonna wait till later.
All right. If there's no other questions for staff, as this is a public hearing, we'll open the public hearing. Applicant is welcome to speak if they'd like.
Hi. So I'm Jamie. This is my business partner, Brittany. Non-family, but she is, we're co-owners of What the Fluff. We have been grooming in the area for 17 years for me and like 15 years for her. So we have been working for like a lot of corporate places, and we found a high need for people who wanted to bring their dogs to a more intimate setting, dogs that are anxious, dogs that need special care, more quiet environment. So that's kind of what our idea was behind opening up an in-home grooming salon, is to keep a more intimate setting for the pets that may not be able to get groomed everywhere. And we found we're pretty popular in the area for that. So we do appreciate your guys' consideration in keeping this kind of going for us.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
A quick one.
Yeah.
There's well, you'll have to do some plumbing issues, some sewer issues, some
Yep.
drainage issue, what you want to call it, mechanical. Will that be an issue? I know you've been doing it for 2 years now.
Yep.
There, will this change impact it largely, or will you still continue?
We already have a plan as soon as this gets approved, before the first frost hits, to get the sewer run right into our house. And we've already been working with the city on that as well so as soon as this gets approved, we can break ground and get that fixed as soon as possible.
Okay.
I have a question here. Has there been any complaints, staff, as far as you know, in terms of sort of noise and any of that, or no?
The only complaint that I'm aware of, that how this originated, was from the actual drainage or some of the waste byproducts that were being processed out of the facility, and that was brought to the city's attention. So yeah, that's our main, we have 2 conditions of approval on that to address that issue, but that's the only concern that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
We keep in pretty close contact with all of our neighbors as well. We have a very close street, so everybody that's touching our property, even before we started this, we talked with all of them to make sure, they were all okay with it. And we keep open communication if anybody does have any concerns about loudness but like I said, we're very one-on-one and very small scale to keep it calm for the dogs. So in that case, people are dropping off, picking up right away. There isn't dogs just being left in there to bark all day either. So that's kind of how it works out for us, and it works out for the dogs and the clients. So
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
As this is a public hearing, again, if there's anybody else that wishes to speak, now's your opportunity. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the dais. Any other comments, discussion?
Quick one, now that we've had this conversation. I'm not opposed to this happening at all, but my concern is if this doesn't get approved or gets, that's me, sorry.
2 demerits for you.
I apologize. If it does get approved, do they have to go out of business or stop until it gets city approved? Or can they just go ahead and do it?
No, in order to operate the use, they need a conditional use permit, so otherwise, that.
Or the city council, it has to get to the city council vote before they can continue business. Is that correct?
Well, they can, because they're working with us on this compliance issue, they can continue their operation. Just as a formality, we need to get it approved by council.
Perfect. That's why I want to make sure we weren't
Okay.
putting them out of business until this
During this-
vote.
during the gap.
During the gap. That was my concern. Okay, thank you.
One comment. I just want to thank you because small business starts small and they grow, eventually they become big. Otherwise, we would not have an iPhone today. iPhone stand in the garage. So, yeah.
All right, any other comments? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion.
I will make a motion to recommend approval of the conditional use permit for a home occupation pet grooming facility at 6700 4th Street North.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Oh,
Oh, with conditions?
With conditions.
I apologize if I missed this, but was the public hearing closed?
Yeah.
Did I close it? I think I did.
I
yes.
apologize, no, I missed it.
I did. I remember I brought it back here.
Yep,
Yes.
with conditions.
So we have a motion with conditions. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. And we will move on to the draft Glenbrook Small Area Plan.
Hello, nice to be back. I have a short presentation, which Luke is going to bring up on the screen here momentarily, but there we go. We have a draft plan that is now out for public review and for your review and comment. I will say that this is not a public hearing because we don't have an ordinance that's going to be adopted. We don't have a comprehensive plan amendment at this time. But we did invite the public and we sent special invitations to everyone who had come to our previous meetings. So it would be appropriate to hear from folks in the audience after the presentation during your discussion. So can we go to the next slide? All right, so another reminder of where we are in the process. We're in the final stages here where we had a city council review of the draft plan at a workshop on August 22nd. And they gave us a few comments, had a little discussion, but then said, yes, go ahead and engage the Planning Commission and the public on the plan. And so it has been available for public review, I think a day or two after that meeting. As I mentioned, we sent out notifications to all those who had participated to let them know it was there and to provide us comments. And the city council wants to hear from the Planning Commission about your recommendations on this as well. And then after this meeting, the idea, depending on what we hear, would be to take it back to council for adoption. Next slide. Just a quick reminder of the engagement that we have done to date. During the first phase of the plan, that was in the fall, and our first engagement event was actually in November of 2022. We had 7 residents attend a neighborhood meeting at the North Fire Station where we discussed kind of what the issues were in the neighborhood, what we needed to address. We also did site visits to businesses in the neighborhood. There were 7 that we met with one-on-one, again, to talk about what the issues were. We also had an opportunity for some online feedback. Then in phase 2 and 3, where we had some alternatives, you'll recall we brought those to you for discussion as well. We had another neighborhood meeting, this time at the Eastgate Apartments, where we had 24 people signed in, but there were quite a few people that attended in pairs, and so only one person. So we know it was more than 24, but that's the number that we had on the sign-in sheet. We did a virtual version of that meeting too, which was lightly attended, but and we had an online survey as well, kind of asking similar questions. But the most input we got during this latter part of the process was during that neighborhood meeting at the apartments. We did another round of site businesses. This time we made contact with 5 businesses, again, for a one-on-one discussion of the alternatives that we had prepared and got their feedback. We also met with MnDOT and with Washington County. Those were 2 separate meetings, but to discuss transportation issues, since that was the big issue that we needed to tackle in this plan. Next slide. Okay, so the last meeting I was here, we discussed the three alternatives, sort of got your feedback on those. We had gotten feedback from the public as well and the city council, and landed on the preferred alternative, which involved creating a new frontage road that would divert truck traffic from cutting through the neighborhood at Upper 51st and even on 52nd Street, and would also recommend a few future land use changes for the neighborhood. And I will go through those in a little bit more detail one at a time. So next. Okay, so as I mentioned, the new frontage road, we are recommending that would move truck traffic away from the residential areas. It would provide access to existing commercial and redevelopment properties as well, namely the, maybe a little bit hard to see on there, but the 6138 Upper 51st Street parcel is the largest vacant area. And the owner is looking to redevelop it, so that would provide some access to that property without forcing commercial traffic adjacent to the residences. And then the trucks would exit on at 50th Street to Geneva Century Avenue. We did get confirmation from MnDOT that that was an intersection that would be maintained, even though the new interchange there has not been designed yet. I will also say here with the new road, in speaking with MnDOT, they wanted to make sure that we did not show the frontage road in or overlapping with the MnDOT right-of-way along 36, although we hope that there is still room for negotiation on that, because the more we have to push the road out of the right-of-way, the bigger the impact on the private property, particularly the triangular parcel right at the corner of Upper 51st and Glenbrook. If the road is not allowed to encroach on the MnDOT right-of-way at all, depending on the design of the road, it could involve actually taking that building. So that's a big potential trade-off there. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, we're also recommending a few changes to the future land use map in the comprehensive plan. This area that I've got the red circle around, and they're also outlined in yellow. Right now, the future land use plan has those parcels labeled as commercial use. Although you'll notice that the Eastgate Apartments at 6048 Upper 51st is right in the middle of that commercial area. There are some single-family residences in that commercial future land use designation. What we're recommending is a change to mixed use for that area. That way the apartment complex would conform with the future land use map, since during our meetings we found that the apartment complex is very stable, doesn't have plans to go anywhere, and so we're trying not to force them out of the neighborhood in any way. And mixed use would also accommodate some flexibility in redeveloping the vacant parcels in the area. And then the next slide. Another note about future land use. You can see from this map, the brown color on this map is mixed use. And so right now, the area that's circled here is where most of the industrial businesses are. So all of the industrial area is in the future land use plan as mixed use. We considered recommending a change there to industrial, but decided that we would leave this mixed use for now because that allows flexibility for future redevelopment if a property owner wishes to do so, but it also allows the industrial uses to stay there if they wish. So this is sort of gives the most flexibility to the landowners. We did include in the implementation section of the plan a section on how the city can work with industrial properties to better comply with the current ordinances. So things like landscaping, buffering, impervious surface, and stormwater management. We have some recommendations on how gradually those industrial properties could improve those things. All right, and then the last slide. Our next steps are to hold this meeting, hear from the public, check in with our business owners, and based on your feedback, we would make changes to the plan and hopefully schedule this for city council adoption on the 26th of September. Again, this isn't an amendment to the comp plan, although we have recommended a couple of future land use changes. If the city decides to go forward with those, that would be a separate comp plan amendment process. So I'd be open for questions and discussion.
Thank you, Aaron. Any questions?
I do. What time was the most common time that trucks were driving through?
That's a great question. We have detailed counts, and actually, since our last meeting with you, one of your questions was, how much of our traffic count was for like residential delivery trucks versus real like industrial traffic. We had our traffic count consultant go back in and look at those and found that very few of the trips were actually like, UPS trucks and things like that going to residences. The vast majority was industrial. I will open up the traffic count spreadsheet while we're here, so if I can answer that question a little bit later. But as I recall, most of the truck traffic was in the morning. So it wasn't, in the middle of the night or everything, but it was started fairly early in the morning. And most of it, I believe, was in the morning. But I will get that information while we're talking if we can come back to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I bring it up is it's just a horrible intersection. It's
Oh, the
like,
50th? Yeah.
The Dairy Queen is there. There's always tons of traffic lined up. She's nodding her head, And how are they're not going to be able to take a left turn. That's going to be impossible. They're going to only be able to go to the right. I mean, if you go there and you experience it, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Not the ideal, but I guess there weren't a lot of choices.
right. And in our conversations with MnDOT, when that interchange gets redesigned, what they did say was that there would likely be some traffic control there, so probably a light, which would be the most logical and safest exit point for trucks coming out onto Century. But
If they make it larger, yeah, because it's a very narrow, it's very small.
right, there's a lot of unknowns, and more study would be needed to how to design that intersection and how to design the road itself. So yeah, a lot of detailed questions, but that's a good concern that we probably want to include something about that in the plan.
Else?
More of a curiosity. When this gets approved, I assume by the city council, is there a time frame when this would be implemented?
That is really up to the council and priorities, but a lot of it also depends. I mean, some of the things we can do now, like amending the future land use map could happen anytime. Making some changes and working with the industrial properties on compliance, that could happen anytime. The construction of the frontage road is a big funding question and would also obviously need to be coordinated with MnDOT work on the interchange, and so I couldn't answer how long that's going to take. That would definitely be a longer term. Yeah.
My only comment is I appreciate that you didn't recommend rezoning that kind of industrial uses as industrial. I think had we gone that direction, that just kind of really locks in the issue even more. By leaving it mixed use, there's at least a hope that we see retail and multifamily and other types of maybe less intense uses than an industrial use. So,
Right.
although this is not a public hearing, I know we have somebody in the audience did you want to make any comments? If not, I will certainly open it up and give you the opportunity. If you can state your name and your address just for the record.
My
please.
name is Linda Kumerick, and I am on 6066 Upper 51st Street, right in the middle by Gershwin and Upper 51st. I've been there since 1976. We've raised 4 kids there, and it occurred to me lately that it was not like this when we moved in. It's barely a block long, And right now, it is a truck route. And regularly on Sunday nights between 9 and 10, 2 trucks, for sure, fully loaded, come down our street. Now, I know that's, yeah, maybe most of it's in the morning and all that, but you can feel it in your house. That's how it is. And my neighbor moved. That was one of the reasons they moved. I'm getting ready to move just because of my age. But it was a nice, quiet neighborhood. We raised kids. Now, that street, there's parking on one side. There's people coming down with all the businesses that have come in over the years. I mean, that industrial has just gone crazy over there. I feel really emotional now. I feel like my blood pressure's way up. But I've just been living there so long, and it's just not, it's not residential. And mixed use to me gives me the willies, like it can become anything. And up and 51st Street, the coffee shop, and then there's Cheryl's. They might have to move, or they might have to do something. And there's a huge intersection, 120 and 36, and this 50th is right there, right there. And I feel for that. So as much as I thought that going around and getting behind there was maybe a plan, now I wonder who's going to even police that? Because now there was a sign about no truck traffic. There was a sign about the poundage, the weight, which I brought these articles here because my neighbor helped me find these, about how much weight is supposed to be on a street and what times of the year. Should I present that to some, or you all know what it is, or should I just tell you what it is? It can't be observed. I just don't think it is. But those signs came down without telling any of us that it's going to say no truck traffic. And you kind of feel betrayed, and you feel like this isn't a neighborhood anymore. I mean, it is. It's my neighborhood. And I'm real sad that anybody else came, because that means we're disjointed. We're just, and I think a lot of it has to do with the street itself. Because way at the end, there's a little business where they're talking about, what is it, a construction business or housers or somebody? JG House. I mean, I don't know. I just feel really very emotional about this, and betrayed is kind of the word as far as, I don't know, where is everybody? And I don't know. My husband didn't want to come with me because he said everything he had to say, but here I am.
Well, we appreciate your comments, so thank you.
All right.
Yep. Aaron, kind of looking at this schedule, it seems like there's no other opportunities to kind of solicit any feedback, and although this has been distributed to the public for kind of review, there's not another feedback loop.
There's not another meeting, right? There isn't another public meeting. Yeah, we have information on the website, and when we reached out, that planning staff is always here to talk to individual folks with concerns. But yeah, we haven't heard from too many. The event at the apartments, was the biggest. Yeah. The biggest turnout that we had. And just getting back to your question about when the truck traffic happened, the earliest vehicle that was counted on 51st was at 5:45 a.m. But actually looking at the distribution of trips, we've got it broken down every 15 minutes. And they're actually quite well spread out all throughout the day. So my statement that they were mostly in the morning isn't actually correct. The latest trip that we saw was at 5:30 p.m. So they're really scattered. There weren't more than 3 trips during any 15-minute period of the day. So just to give you a little more information on that.
Luke, doesn't quite matter how it happened, but to her, Linda's comment about there were signs that said no truck traffic, it seems like it might be worth a conversation with engineering and public works to just see if signs can go up, although it becomes more of an honor system. Even if you get one truck that decides, okay, I'll figure out a different route because of it, it's something that seems pretty cost neutral to us. So
I guess what I can say, based on conversation with engineering staff, public works, even public safety, that it's always an issue of enforcement and realistically being able to enforce vehicle traffic that doesn't comply with the signage. And also there's that kind of ongoing expectation that, there's going to be enforcement, and, we only have so much resources. We can only get to that, that issue so often. So it's just, the administrative burden is always something to consider.
Understood.
I would like to just add something in response to the comment. Part of the reason for the recommended alignment, rough alignment of the road, is that it would be much easier for trucks to navigate that. There's no, hard 90-degree turn. And so even without the signage, the idea is that trucks will automatically take that bypass or new frontage road because it's easier to drive and because there would be a light on Century for them to make an easier left turn. That's a design detail that would need to be carefully examined, but.
Aaron, that's exactly what the city engineer had mentioned, that if you design it so that truck traffic's kind of naturally want to take this route, then you're gonna avoid trucks going through the neighborhood.
Any other comments or questions for Aaron? I don't believe there's any action that we need to take on this, correct?
That's correct, unless you have particular thoughts, recommendations that you'd like to pass along to council. You have your council rep here too, listening.
None. All right, thank
Okay.
you, Aaron.
All right.
We'll move on to planning and development updates.
Yes, so 3 things, kind of summary from the last planning commission meeting that I just want to bring you up to speed on. So if you recall the conditional use permit for 6449 49th Street, so that was the chicken hatching operations. So the applicant actually withdrew because there's going to be an issue with the actual number of chickens allowed by the police department. So the keeping of animals permit, that's separate from the CUP, and it was very clear that they weren't going to get approval through the police department for that permit. So it's really a moot point to keep moving forward with the CUP. So
Because sorry to interrupt, but so the police department looked at it as, hey, you have 25 chickens. If you hatch these 10 chicks, you now have 35 chickens and you're in
Exactly.
violation of that permit. Understood.
the other conditional use permit, the additional accessory structure at 7065 43rd Street, that was approved by the city council at the last meeting. And then the Hudson Boulevard Apartments development, that was also approved at the last meeting by city council. And looking ahead to the October Planning Commission meeting, I anticipate that we will have a meeting. We have at least one application on file right now. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Luke. And city council update, nothing from the council member. All right. Then I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah, Chris.
Thank you.
Yes, you did. It's not hurting.